I like to eat things that make me feel good and, that make me feel. See, I don't know if it's in my mind or if it's in my taste buds or what it is, but I just enjoy. Well, like I said, once again, at my age, you have to find enjoyment in some things in life. Well, I grew up with the name Edward or Ed Okamoto. Uh, some people called me Eddie, which I really disliked. Uh, I don't know why, but I just grew up and just never liked that nickname of Eddie. You I remember this one dish my mother used to make, and when I grew up, I was a really picky eater. My mother used to worry all the time that, oh, I'm not going to grow, and because I was always the smallest of the four boys. It was like, I was down here, and my mother was always worried about me not eating enough, and for some reason, she made this one dish, and it was like ground pork, and I used to sit in the kitchen and watch her make it, and I just thought it was fascinating. She'd take these. They were like not really bowls, but they were like a deep dish like this, and she would take the ground pork and put different things in them, and then she'd press it into the plate, and then she'd put it into these steamers, and then she'd steam it. And for some reason, I really liked that dish. I mean, I really liked it. In fact, I remember one time I ate so much I got sick. I've been thinking about the old dishes from the past, so I decided I wanted to, try doing that here and making that same dish. We didn't speak any Japanese. We just spoke nothing but English because, you know, I think my mother told us that before we went to first grade, we spoke nothing but Japanese. And then when we started going to school, my mother thought that it would interfere with us learning English, so she quit speaking Japanese. My grandmother, it would be my mother's mother, lived with us. So there was my father, my mother, my grandmother, and my brother and I. There was five of us living in this house. I was going to school at Oregon State University, and I enrolled in a beginning Japanese class, and I maybe went 3 or 4 times at the most, and they met at least twice a week, and I was so embarrassed because first of all, I was the only Japanese in the class, and there were probably 15 students in there, and all non-Japanese, and most of them could speak really good Japanese. And to me, I was so embarrassed, I dropped the class. I just, I couldn't, I couldn't deal with it. I didn't know that I knew I was born in Tule Lake, but I didn't know it was a relocation center. I didn't know that until I was taking an American history class at Oregon State. And professor comes in, and we'd been going to classes for several weeks, and he comes in one day and he says, "Oh, we're going to have a class today on the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II." I said, "Oh, okay." So I didn't think anything about it, and then he started naming all these camps that were used for his relocation centers, and he said Tule Lake. My ears popped up. I said, "Oh my gosh, I was born there." So I forget what day of the week that was, but that Friday I left school at Corvallis and drove back up to Portland. And Friday evening, I sat down with my parents and said, "Hey, you have to tell me what's this all about, Tule Lake, and the war." And so they said, "Yeah, it's true. We were in a camp during the war." And I says, "How come you never talked about it?" I didn't know, not a clue, you know. And so they, I think they were probably ashamed of being in that situation, you know. So they never talked about it. And I've talked to other Japanese people that are in the same situation. They've gone through their life and their parents never talked about it. Yeah, they didn't use their Japanese names at all. They all used, you know, their non-Japanese names. My wife had passed away during COVID, just before COVID. And then when somebody is deceased like that, there's all this paperwork you have to do. And I had to go to the bank and, you know, uh, Social Security, everything. And so I had to do a lot of rewriting of forms and names, official paperwork, and stuff like that. And I just decided at that moment that I'm going to be ISAO Okamoto. I'm not going to have no middle name. It's going to be just like the birth certificate, you know. And so everything from that point forward, it's Isao Okamoto. There's no middle name at all. And so when I decided, and I don't know why I decided to do that, but it just felt like, for me personally, it just felt better, like this is who I really am. It's not. Before, when I was Ed or Edward, it just didn't, it always felt kind of weird. I don't know how to explain it, but, and I went ahead and made the dish. And like I said, I was just real pleased that it came out. My memory tells me it's probably not exactly the same, but it's pretty darn close.